church. Well, good afternoon, friends, and welcome to Missions Monday. And we are here together to discuss a very pertinent topic, and it has to do with young people. So we have two young people on the program today. I was laughing because we get to a certain age when a lot of people are young people or younger people.
So you're saying it has less to do with me, more to do with you? Is that
correct.
what you're saying? Okay.
That's exactly correct. And Pastor Pete Lestera is with us here in the studio. He's going to share a brief devotional. Then we'll go to the subject, which is how to start or how a ministry can commence a youth ministry. And so, we'll be discussing this, and I hope that you can stay with us for the entire broadcast. And to kick it off, Pastor Pete, what would you like to share with us?
I'm privileged to be here finally next to you.
We had
this
talked
is the
about
first.
This.
I knew eventually it would happen. Prayed, could only hope that it would happen. 2 Kings chapter 18. This was my devotional this morning, it's the story of Hezekiah. Hezekiah starts to reign, and he's one of those kings that is good. And his first action in chapter 18, 2 Kings 18, is to remove the high places and break the image and cut down the groves and break the pieces of the brazen serpent that Moses had made in verse 4. First caught me by surprise. I was like, wait, this thing, it's still around? All those wars, all those kings throughout the desert, throughout all the victories in the new promised land, all the judges, King David, the Philistines, the Amorites, all those kings. And all this time they had possession of the brazen serpent back from Numbers, from the days in the desert. But something had changed. The brazen serpent, which was never meant to be an idol. It was never there to give, spiritual power or healing power. It was just a sign of obedience. It's for us. It's like looking unto Jesus, right? The brazen serpent. It was never in itself meant to be anything else other than a sign of obedience. That when God said, "Look unto the brazen serpent," that we would obey, and in our obedience we are healed. The thing itself was never anything. Mm-hmm. And that's what that word means. Nehushtan means, a thing of brass. It means it's nothing. So he really does two things. Hezekiah become king, and he calls what they're worshiping, the idol that they have made it, he calls it just a thing of brass. It's nothing. And then he breaks it into pieces. And, the question we have to ask is, what came first? Did idolatry come first, and then they lost their connection with God? Or with the loss of their connection to God, did their heart yearn for an idol? And I think it's probably the second, right? Mm-hmm. We have idols in our life. Why? We worship things. We make things more important than they should be. Why? Because we're not connected to God. The heart is yearning. It's lacking something. It seeks to worship something. It seeks to live by faith. It seeks to have communion with eternity. You know what I mean? And this is a great little idea of something that was really beautiful, that was connected to obedience, that was connected to the presence of God. And then, of course, like we would do, we turn it into something bad. And my life right now, a big subject in my life is the idol of time. Maybe I've been giving some extra time recently, so now I'm a little worried about it because I could see how I could turn time into an idol, and I'm looking to protect myself and understand the blessings that God has given us, and not recognizing the blessing, but slowly letting the blessing fade and becoming idle with my time and creating things in my life that are really important, but that are not that important, and taking unnecessary time with necessary things. Wow. That's a G. Campbell Morgan quote. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm a candidate for that. And this is really good for today, because we're talking about youth ministry. And what I think youth ministry can be for us is a way that we stay close to God, that we don't turn something good into an idol, that we use our time wisely, that we redeem the time, that we really commit time to our kids, our youth ministry, our teenagers, our nursery babies. This is really a commitment of time in our life, and that's what it takes. That's what it requires. And we don't want this thing turning into Nehushtan. Whatever it is, we will make it into that. We will always turn it into that. That brazen serpent will turn from something beautiful into something bad. And I am capable of that. We are all capable of that. And we're careful of that. And we are interested in really having communion with God, keeping our heart on fire with God. And therefore, nothing, like anything, including time, will become an idol in our life. And we are gladly, willingly sacrificing ourselves, sacrificing our life to win over the youth and love the youth and be with the youth. It's actually fun to do because God is communing with us. We are with him. We don't need that idol. We don't need that free time. We need a little free time, of course, but we are very careful with our hours and our time. So that was my thought this morning, a thing of brass. I don't want it in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want a thing of brass in my life. I want Christ. I want God.
Wow.
Amen.
Well, that's beautiful. And the idea of brass being also, speaking of judgment, the idea originally you were saying was that, Israel was being bitten by serpents.
Mm.
They were being judged for their disobedience, but if they looked to the brazen serpent, that judgment was passed on to, and that's the type of, Jesus Christ, that our judgment, which was due to us, fell on him and transferred. But this idea that you brought up about time, wow, that we can start there. And joining with us is Jamie Mudson, and she has been with this gentleman for 9 years. Has it been, Jamie?
I think it's been about 7 years.
I'm sorry. He worked you the 2 extra years, so it feels like
he's worked at least 9 years in those 7.
No, that's right. Okay. But so yeah, you're gonna chime in on some very important aspects of this. But I want to spin off of that thought of yours, in terms of time, because I know that when people think of youth ministry, when they think of junior church or how to invest in young people, they fall down on one of two sides of the equation. One is that maybe I can not invest so much time, okay, and I can come up with something that will be edifying for them, or I don't have enough time for that kind of ministry. Can you help us? Maybe there's a balance, in that, whereby, how do you begin a youth ministry in a local assembly?
Yeah. That is a great question, actually, because it's the most important question maybe that we could discuss today. Okay. You have to have one. You have to begin one, and the excuse of time is not a valid excuse, unfortunately. Now, I know we're busy. I understand. I know all about it. I'm right there with you, and I understand that our life is very busy. But time has to be set aside. If we're talking about a church, we're talking about mission churches, small churches, big churches, doesn't matter. Then time has to be set aside, and the work has to be done. And it will not happen. Pastor Mati famously said this very deep quote: "If we don't go, then we won't be there."
Wow.
I mean, I love that.
Yes.
If we don't set aside the time and make time to do it, and then it will never happen. The youth ministry will not be built. Kids will not be edified. Kids will not be ministered unto. And how to start it? Well, usually it starts because of a need. Hey, I got 3 kids, so I need a teen ministry. That's generally how it goes, and I'm okay with that. And that's probably by God's grace, most of us have gotten away with that kind of life. Meaning we realize too late we're missing out on something, or that we're not doing something, but that's okay. The better thought would be no, let's get ahead of it here. We need a youth ministry. We
Okay.
need a Sunday school. We need a teen ministry, and let's do it even though there is no kids, because we will have kids. Let's be preemptive. Let's
Yes,
have a
wow.
vision for it. So you set aside the time for the vision and the idea of it, and maybe it'll happen.
Well, I think that the idea is that any local ministry, if you're going to have families, and you do have
Mhm.
families, and I like what you said, instead of kind of taking it on because you have some children that are staring you in the face, and or they can't sit in a Sunday service, so
Mm.
you have to have a place for them to go. I think it's more than that. I
It's got to
think
be more than that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like you were saying, being proactive and really saying, this is part of our church life. This is part of, and here's the thing that I think that is really interesting, is that children, young people, are souls. I
Mm.
don't want to see them as just small people.
Mm.
I don't want to see them as you know you know children in the sense of like, well, they won't understand, or they can't receive, or they don't have a capacity.
Mm.
I want to see them as souls, and
Yeah.
so that then the Spirit of God can lead as far as questions about curriculum and programs and everything. Maybe Jamie, you can chime in on this. Um, the idea of doing something with young people is a lot more than pizza and a Friday night out, isn't it?
There's a lot of pizza, by the way.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I think just kind of going back really quick to what you guys were talking about with like having time. I mean, I know for me, like I have 4 little kids, so time could be like a really good excuse, like, oh, I don't have time to invest in other kids. I'm already investing in my own. But I always feel like bringing my kids along with me or explaining to them, tonight I'm actually going to go spend some time with the older kids, with the teens, and explaining to them like what that means. I think, it's something that I love to be with the teens, but also it's teaching my kids that ministry is very important. And it's
Hmm.
not all just about them, even though I do take time to invest in them, obviously. But, our life is bigger than what we're doing at home or even what we're doing in our church. But beyond that, we have a ministry to other people. So I think for me, like ministering, I love kids, but I really love teens. I just love spending time with them. I love talking to them. I think they have a capacity that you could talk to them on like an adult level.
Sure.
And I love doing that. So I think just being present in their life is so big, just to know their name and
Mm.
just show that you really care. It means so much as to a young person. And I think just continuously showing up in their life. I went to their volleyball game, or I said hi to them at school, or remembered their name. I remembered that, they have a test coming up and I was praying for them. I mean, it means a lot, and you kind of get to know them little by little, and then you're kind of in their life, and you may be in their life forever.
Mm.
There's some teenagers that I got to know at Camp Life, and now they're in their 20s and we're still good friends, and I invite them over and they're like part of family dinners, or it's so easy in a way to have a ministry. And then obviously when it's, maybe I think we're kind of talking about the mission field and starting a youth ministry. And I remember when I helped out in the Dundalk church. They were like, we need a Sunday school teacher. And I was just like, well, I'm available, like throwing that out. And they're like, okay, you can do it. And I'm like, what? Like, I was like
Yes, right.
old. I had
Show
like,
up and you'll be used. That's right.
yeah, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no like materials. I didn't know anything. I just showed up and started teaching the kids Bible lessons that I knew. And we kind of just started from scratch. There was like 8 kids, all different ages. It was like 3 to 9 years old. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, we're all in this one room and we're going to learn about God. And it was just like, I was learning with them. But that's just kind of how it started. The kids couldn't sit in church and they needed somewhere to go. So we found like a back room somewhere. And I just I don't
You
know.
know,
It just showed
that's
up.
amazing, Jamie. Really. And that's the story. And I love what you were saying about, your own children. And in as much as that, you were doing this together. I think that sometimes, people think that, church life is separate from, you know, every other aspect of my life. But if it's all inclusive, like what we understand as body life, okay? And that means that it's all relational. So if you show up and you've got your children and there's maybe two others, that's six, okay, let's just talk about Jesus. Let's And I'm trying to put it out here that it's very simple,
Yes.
very simple.
Yes.
I think, but not easy in the sense that we can overthink
Hmm.
the whole process. And like what you were saying, relationships, understanding, allowing these other young people to be in your life, not, this separate teacher student kind of orientation, or I am the youth director, no, it's it's like, let's share this life of Christ together. And that's amazing. That's why I think, it can be done by any of us if we just show up and make it happen.
I got the quote of the day already.
Okay.
It's simple but not easy.
Okay.
Pastor Wright. That's it. That's it in a nutshell right there. It's simple but not. Don't get confused. It's hard work. There's a
It
cross.
is. Yep.
You have to have faith. You do it by faith. But there is an easiness to it also. There's a simplicity to it, like Jamie is saying. Just look, I'm here. I'm going to do it. I'm going to step out in faith. I'm going to love some kids. I'm not going to I'm not going to use these excuses. Time. I don't have the gifts. I don't have the natural talent. I'm not good with kids. Those kind of sentences.
Sure.
Those are not allowed. We don't respond that way.
Right.
We just say, let's, who cares? God used all kinds of crazy people,
That's true.
including myself.
Yeah,
So just a simple response in faith and a little bit of love in our hearts. And wow, we got a youth ministry.
Well, the grace of God always surprises us because, it reveals that, yes, like you were saying, God could use me in a way that I can't think of myself doing, because like your list of, I don't have the gift, I don't have the ability, I don't have the materials. I don't. Well, don't yourself out of the opportunity to live by faith, because if you're not living by faith, then there's something missing in that picture.
Wow. Yeah.
And that is the most important aspect and the most important element. Well, we have a question here. What is a youth ministry and what does it include? And there's 3 subpoints, but I'm just going to leave it open. What is youth ministry?
Let's see. I think of it as like a little church and within a church.
Yeah.
I don't feel much different than a pastor of a church. I never tried to be anything or classify myself as anything, but it just has become this way, that you have a weekly service, except it's the Bible study and not the Sunday morning service.
Right.
You have events, and they're not, conferences or Eurocon or convention. They are, a youth trip. They are camp. They are these kind of events. We have counseling, and, we counsel kids, and we go on visitation, and we're getting to know them and trying to connect with them and know who they are. We got to know every single kid by name. We have to understand who they are. We got to really work hard to get to know them, because there's a big difference between adult church and youth ministry, and that is, Pastor Schaller gets on stage, preaches a message, opens the door, and the church fills. But with teens, especially with teens, I know we're talking a little more about teens than others, but in general, maybe in the nursery, of course, they come in, and in children's ministry, they'll come in for Sunday school. But with teens, you can open any door you want to. No one's going to show up. You got to go after them. You got to go after them. So that's the big difference. They are similar. It's a little church within a church, but you have to go after them, and they will not come unless they know you and they know you care, and you kind of fight for them. There's a battle involved, and you have to take time, set time aside, and pursue them, which is actually kind of fun. There's nothing better than a kid who wants nothing to do with you, and then seeing him connect with you, and over a period of 6 months to a year and a half, or 2 years, all of a sudden you're best friends. That's a wonderful process. So It's a church within a church, and we obviously our main goal is to love. Well, our main goal is to magnify Christ. We are trying to magnify Christ all the time. That is always our main goal. We're always Christ-centered in everything we do and how we think. But with Christ in our hearts, we love kids, and we want to teach kids about Christ. And that is the youth ministry. It's oversimplified, but I don't really need complicated answers. I just need God's love in my heart, and it works. It just works. It will not turn void, and that's what we want.
Well, it's easy for some folks to say that, children, are more independent today. They're more distracted today. They're more, isolated today. Again, those are precursors for not wanting to do anything. But what would you suggest would be? I mean, I hear you. Like going after them. What does that look like?
It doesn't look like anything other than start with, like Jamie said, know their name. Every time you see them, you say hello, talk to them. I go to church. I don't look for adults or my friends. I'm looking for the teenagers. They know that I'm looking for them. They know they cannot walk past me in the hallway without saying hello. And you just start to know them, and that's how it begins. And then you ask them, we do this visitation on Tuesday nights, which I just love. It's literally my favorite thing to do in the youth ministry. And a couple of us just get in the car, we drive, we set it up with the parents, and we show up at their door and sit down and have a cup of coffee, hopefully.
Okay.
Sometimes not so much, but sometimes we just get water or something crazy. No, we get a cup of coffee. Yeah. And we just have a great time, and the kids love it, and it breaks the ice. So they know I'm after you. And we love taking kids to lunch. We have a cafe here, or we grab a couple people, go to lunch with them out of the school. Or, we went for pizza the other night with a kid that's a little disconnected and but wants to be connected. So, it's just time. It's just time. That idol. It's all you have to do. Give up a little of your time, and it works.
And I guess not to assume that they don't want to be with you.
Right.
Yeah, because the awkwardness probably is on their end, where they're wondering, who is this person aside from my parents, who is stepping into my life or is inviting me into their life. That I think is crucial because. I don't know. I mean, when I was coming up, it seemed like I gravitated towards older people who allowed me to be in their life. And that was like gold for me. But
that explains your wisdom right there.
I mean, it's just that there's that idea that, they're just, they're into their own thing and, which they are. But if you just kind of, whistle them up. And I love what you were saying about looking for them. And Jamie, you were saying the same thing that, just saying their, hey, and putting a name to the face and the face to the name. And maybe you could speak out of your own experience on that.
I think also, like, for anybody that's wondering about maybe younger kids, not just teens, even just getting to know the families, obviously, as a mom, your kids are like everything to you, and you want people to like love your kids.
Wow.
And to be interested in them. Like it means a lot, when someone like, oh, I got to spend time with your daughter, she's awesome.
Yes.
That really means a lot to me. So I think just also like when I think about youth ministry, I think that it's a compliment to the church. So like we are complimenting the church by loving the families that are in the church. And how do we love those families? But we love their kids. And that means a lot to the families. So even if they're coming into Sunday school, getting to know the parents' names, getting to know their kids, how old they are, what grade they're in, what they're interested in, like Pete was saying. And then as they get older and they're growing up in the youth ministry and they are teenagers, maybe we can spend more like one-on-one time with them, or we can go visit them at their house, or, like it's just, as I think it keeps kids involved and it keeps them like, wow, I've been loved like my whole life. I know for me, I grew up in the church. So I really felt loved in the Sunday school. And then as I got older, and now I feel like, in my opinion, I feel like the teen ministry is, I don't know, I think it's the best it's ever been. I feel like it's very personal right now. And I think there's people not just us, not just me and Pete, but we have a really good team, and we
Mm.
have people that really love teens and really love kids. And I think, like I've just invited a bunch of the juniors or seniors at GGCA, like the girls, to come over my house and just hang out. And I think there's always this like little element of surprise, like, oh, they really want to come, because I feel like who wants to come and hang out at my chaotic house with all my kids running around and screaming, and but then we just, there's nothing. I think sometimes I feel like people might get intimidated, like, oh, I don't have money, I can't pay for everyone's dinner, I can't do these activities, I can't take everybody bowling, that could cost me like $100, but honestly, there's so many things that you could do. Like, I've had kids over and played charades with them. That didn't cost me anything. I asked
Right.
kids to bring one snack, and I'll have like popcorn, like, because maybe I don't have the money to buy everybody a pizza, and that's okay. Kids don't care about that kind of stuff. I feel like as adults we think, oh, they're going to be embarrassed by this or that, and I'm like, they don't even care. They just want to know that you love them, and I think
Yeah.
it means a lot.
Yeah. I always think of, I want to make a t-shirt that says youth ministry, embrace the awkward, you just got to be
Good,
okay with
yeah.
awkward. I
Wow.
mean, they don't know, they literally do not know that they want your time and your attention. They don't even, they're so involved in their little sub world and create this entire sub world with all their peers
Hmm.
that they're comfortable with, that whenever they're with an adult, it's so weird. This is a
Yes.
new phenomenon in the last 50 plus years where young people don't know how to be with adults because they created their own world. And so it's very awkward. Oh my gosh, I can tell you stories. It's extremely awkward, but you just got to be okay with awkward.
Okay.
And understand that you don't know what you want. You have no idea what you need. You need my love. You need our love, the youth ministry's love. You need the body's love, and you just plow away, keep doing it, and it works. And it can be a lot of fun. I think one of the reasons I love working with Jamie, she's just so easy and has so much fun and loves kids. It's so clear to me. She just gets the very simple thing correct. Love the kids, hang out with the kids, and you have a great time.
I love the idea that both of you have expressed how being with the parents as well, or kind of understanding, because there's been historically kind of an artificial separation where some households, I send my kids to Sunday school to learn about that, but there's not anything going on at home.
Mm-hmm.
And tell me, what is there a spillover? Have you seen where, because you've ministered to the children, that you've had some impact also on some of the adults in those households? Jamie, about that?
I mean, just I think 2 years ago when I was running the nursery during our like annual Easter play at our church, there was like a mom that came in with her 2-year-old, I think, and we were just kind of doing what we always do. The kids get to play. We were doing crafts, and the mom was so impressed that her daughter got to do a Bible lesson and do a craft. Like, she was so blown away, which is funny because that's just what we do. But she ended up putting her daughter in GGLC that next year. And because she was just like, she knew that the church and that the preschool were connected, and she wanted her daughter to be a part of something like that. And that was just like, I was like so blown away by it, because I'm like, oh, it's so normal for us. But even that, just having an impact on her. And I think just even like everybody, maybe not everybody that we are connecting with, goes to a private school, they just come to our church.
Right.
And maybe they're just not, I know for our family, we really teach our kids the Bible at home, but not for everybody. It's like, they don't always do that. And we would want that, obviously, but maybe the kids are only hearing the Bible at church or at a Bible study. And then they get to bring that home. And I think it has such an impact on the parents. And maybe they say, hey, I want to be a part of this. I want to go to church more. I want to teach my kids more at home. And I think the kids can really impact the parents, which would be amazing.
That is amazing when that can happen. And we're after the whole household, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens a lot, actually. You can win parents over. I mean, I don't think it's our goal. Again, your goal is to love the kids. You don't have some kind of grand scheme. Like
Right.
the child-centered home, the child-centered church. It's not really what we're about, but absolutely, we know. Actually, in a way, sometimes I know the kids more than I do the parents. You know what I mean? Like the parents may have been in our church for 20 or 30 years, and I barely know them
Yes.
because I'm connected to the kids. So they go hand in hand. It definitely is a result. I think if you're a little church on the mission field and you're trying to build your church, I think, through the kids, it could be a very good avenue.
Well, one of the questions that we had is, a pitfall, or
Hmm.
what you should have some boundaries, because obviously we live in a day and an age when there's all kinds of things happening, in the social realm, and adult child relationships can
Mhm.
be misconstrued, or that I mean, just using discretion. Could you just maybe touch on some of those things that
Oh,
are
there's
important?
unfortunately there's a lot of pitfalls. We know, we the reason we uh, read our Bibles, go to church, pray, beg
Yes.
God to help us, because we are so
Mhm.
prone to stray and fall away. There is some issues. The things that I see a lot. My number one pitfall, or number one thing I see or hear about, is that there's a general attitude that the youth leader will take care of the kids, or the Sunday school teacher will take care of the
Right,
kids.
right.
In the church, I'm the pastor, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the usher, I do my job, I'm the trustee, I'm the elder, whatever. Oh, we have a youth leader for that. Now, Pastor Schaller is not like that. He's very involved.
Sure.
I can't do a single event without him calling me. He is teaching our seniors every single week. If he had more time, he would love to be even more involved. But he is not one of these guys that's pushing kids away.
Mhm.
He's too busy, doesn't want to deal with them. That counts for both the pastor, the elders, the leaders of the church, but also for the body itself. The body itself cannot say, "Oh, the youth ministry will take care of these kids." These are part of the body. They are included. They cannot be excluded in any form. From 6 months old to 18 years old,
Mhm.
they are part of the body. The whole church has to love the kids. The whole church has to make kids feel welcome. The whole church has to reach out to them. If I had my way, I'd have the whole church know every single teenager's name and
Well,
come to Bible. I mean, I know I'm
yeah.
dreaming, but I would love a kind of culture, a kind of environment where, man, we love our kids and everybody's involved. They cannot be pushed away and put on the shoulders of the youth leader. It
True.
won't work.
Well, I think, the idea of departmentalizing anything,
Mm.
and it's over here and then that's over there, and
Mhm.
it seems like it's a good organization, but we're not an organization. We're an
Mhm.
organism.
Yeah.
And I love what you're saying. So everybody in the body, in the ministry, is actually by default in the youth ministry as
Mm.
well. And when that is, I think, implemented or revealed through the leadership, then it's easier for those otherwise, just different members of the body of Christ to get involved and to love the kids. But I'm just thinking also in terms of some boundary lines, when
Okay.
when you should respect those boundary lines, and
Oh
let's
yeah.
define
I
a
mean,
couple of those.
there's all kinds of margins and boundary lines that we think about. But one thing is, I am not the parent.
Okay.
In no
Wow.
scenario can I think of myself as the parent. There has to be a lot of respect and honor for the position of the parent. A lot of honor. God said, honor your father and your mother. Like, I honor the father and the mother. I don't go against them. I don't talk negatively with kids about their parents.
Mhm, mhm.
Nothing I do will fill that void of a dad or a mom. So we have that. That's a very, very solid line. Whatever's going on, we do our utmost to never engage in any negativity towards the parent. Never judge them.
Okay, but what if a child comes and they've got
Yeah,
an issue at home and they want to
yeah,
talk to you about?
yeah. The only time really that may have to be broken is if the law is broken. Like if there's something really
Okay.
bad going on.
Right.
We're saying this very simply here. But if we
Mhm.
know that there's some kind of abuse, of course, we have to deal with it. We have to report it even. So there is a limit to that in one sense. So there's that line, and then also, of course, we have other things where we don't want to really be. I'm not really trying to be their buddy either. I'm not trying to be their best
Wow,
friend.
that's a good point.
I will never stoop down to that level. I am not their peer, and I have fun with them. I really do. I have a lot of fun with them. We have a lot of fun. Jamie just has a total ball, and she's very good at it. But at the end of the day, I am always going to be. I always want them to see me as an adult, someone older, someone hopefully wiser, with some good advice, some good counsel, some godliness to share with them, some God, holiness,
Wow.
like Christ-likeness. That's,
Mm.
if I could be Christ-like, that would be unbelievable. If God could use me in such a way that I could be Christ-like. So there is a difference. I'm not really trying to be, a buddy and stoop down to that. That doesn't work for me. There's all kinds of margins and lines, but those are just two quick ones.
I think those are very important because, I mean, peers, peer pressure and all of that, they create their own peer environment. And all that simply means is that there's no real authority above that group, whatever it might be. But that's what they need. They need to be able to see someone who is not in their peer alignment and that can speak into their lives and not not in a judgmental way, but in a clarity and an authority. And like you're saying, the idea that here's an adult and yet they are interested in my life, and maybe I can become interested in their life, which totally destroys the whole notion of generational gap, which again is a rather recent phenomenon amongst families and communities. So now we're seeing the need for guidance and investment and for examples, because maybe they're not seeing it anywhere else, for that. Now I'm thinking also outside of the context, of what we have here at home base, because it's seamless, from GGCL all the way up to the Bible College. But if say a parent or a household and their children are going to a public school, and then the only time that they are hearing something, hearing truth and hearing life is when they're with, the youth ministry. Can you make a distinction with that, or do you make a distinction at all with that, Jamie?
I mean, I think sometimes we can kind of tell where people are at. Like, I know when I helped out at Dundalk, when I first started, it was like so bad because like I was teaching the kids as if they already kind of knew the story.
Right,
I was
right.
like reminding them, but
Yeah.
they have never even heard Noah's name before. Like they didn't know anything, which was amazing. Like it was like revelation to me because I'm like, okay, I have to start at ground zero here, which was great. Like I could, but it was like I really had to be spirit taught because I had grown up in the ministry and I knew, you're just very familiar with all the stories. And I was like, okay, so I really asked God, like, how could I teach them? So what I ended up doing was I would teach them 4 weeks in a row the same story, which sounds like overkill, but when you've never heard the stories, like I really wanted them to get it, So the first week I would read the story and teach it to them. The second week I would read it and teach it to them. The third week I would have them teach me the story. And then the fourth week we would do like a fun either activity or we would watch a movie on the story. And I would have them like apply it to their life. Like, how could you apply Noah's Ark to your life? So it was really good for me to learn that everyone's at a different capacity and that's okay. So I think right now, being at the church in Baltimore, we can kind of see, I think just being in the classroom or being in the lobby and just welcoming families, you can kind of see like, these are the families that come Sunday morning and they just come Sunday morning. And that's fine.
Right.
We're not like,
Right.
I think you try to catch people where they're at. Like, okay, this family comes Sunday morning, so I really want to engage with them. Maybe there's another family that's going to come 3 times a week. And of course you also want to engage with them, but that maybe you have like a little more of an opportunity and it can be like a little more of like a slower relationship, getting to know the kids. Sunday mornings is like this is all I have. I'm only going to see this family in this
Mhm.
once a week. So I really want to talk to them because it's going to be another week before I see them. So I think it's kind of fun. I remember when I used to do junior church and I was kind of like leading it, but just like the door opener. And I loved it because it was such a good opportunity to get to know the families and just introduce myself. And some people like you've seen for years, but I didn't even know their name, you know? So
That's what
I think
Pastor
like
Peter was.
some
Yeah.
people might say like I'm not good with kids or I can't be in a classroom, and I'm like, well, there's so many opportunities for you then, because just opening the door and saying hi and being a friendly face is a great way to get to know families in the church and get to know their kids.
So you're actually saying something I think is very important. Two things, actually. One is that, and you, by the way, capsulized the ideal curriculum, for teaching
She never
kids.
told me that. That's
Yeah,
so
I mean,
good.
that was brilliant. I mean, and because the idea is that we assume, yes, we're in America, like you've
Yeah.
heard about
Yeah.
Noah and you've heard about David and you've heard these. No, people haven't. And so when you're coming at, the very entry level, low key, simple process. And then I love the fact that you would repeat it. We think that people are bored with repetition, but not everybody, not this guy either, gets it on the first go around.
Mm.
And you want them to have it. You want them to start to build this basis of like discovering these people, and they are found in the Bible, and the Bible is like a book I can hold, I can read for myself. That's excellent. The second thing is how you have maybe a team. So you have somebody that's teaching, but then maybe you have a teacher's aide, or you have someone who is directing, greeting and ministering that way. That's important just as much as anything that's happening, say, in the classroom. Or you take them out, and you're just there. It's not like you're leading the group or involved with the group, but you are there, and relationships can be built.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, a lot of what we're saying is we're loving the kids, but also,
Mhm.
I think what we're saying is we're loving the families and getting to know them. And I think I just always want to look at youth ministry as it's not like this little separate thing that I'm taking
Right.
kids out, but really we don't plan anything on a Sunday with kids, because Sunday is a family day for church members, and we want to complement the church in that way. Any event that we do, the first thing that Pete tells me is you need to check with the church calendar and you have to check with GGCA. And I think that's so good because we're not trying to take over and we're not trying to say the youth ministry is more important. On the contrary, we actually want the church to be so important in people's lives and for the youth ministry just to complement that. And really, I think in some ways, a way that you could maybe practically get like a family involved is, which I think we do also, is like, here, this is what your kid learned in Sunday school today. Here's a piece of paper. You could practice this at home. Here's the memory
Mhm.
verse for the week. You could do this with your kid. And I think that gets the family involved with the kid, but it also gets them to know, like, what is my kid learning at Sunday school?
Right.
I'm dropping them off and I don't even know what's happening. And I think
Right.
it's so good for like the teacher parent relationship, and just to know that what they're learning and that kids can repeat it back to you and you can do it at home with them. Like every time we get a memory verse for the week, I write it on our whiteboard in our kitchen. So we're all learning it. It's not just, oh yeah, my kid's learning this, but I have to learn it too. I can learn it with them.
I mean, I've been called on the carpet more than once, my grandkids coming and, quoting these verses, and I'm thinking like, wow, where did you learn? And I thought
Yeah.
that was so good.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a step back, and because I think what Jamie was bringing out is important, and that is that, the youth ministry or ministry to our young people, and within the context of maybe some of the regional churches that we have here in Maryland, to be able to bounce off of some of the events, the big events that you have, where they could send their young people to? Mention a couple of,
Yeah,
how
I
does that
mean,
work?
maybe before we say that,
Okay.
I have a deep conviction that we run a big show here. I mean, we
Mhm.
have 60 plus volunteers just to get through the week. Maybe is it close to that, Jamie? 60 or 50 or something like that, just to
Right.
get through the week, just to get through our Sunday school program, our Bible study. It's a big program, hundreds of kids really involved, 60, 70 teenagers, junior teens, children's ministry. It's a massive program. We have massive events, really. I don't know if it's really the best way. Okay. That's my personal conviction. Sunday school, teen ministry, youth ministry is not about big events and a big show. We have a huge thing that we do in the summer called Camp Life. It's a major thing that we work on all year to get it going. It's a wonderful thing. It's God's will. I mean, I'm so behind these things, but we're talking about little churches on the mission field, local churches, like you said, in the area. They don't have any of this. They don't have a massive staff. They don't have classrooms galore. They don't have a Camp Life program in the summer. They don't have mission trips. They don't. We just do a lot here, but I don't think that's the core of the youth ministry. The core of the youth ministry is just one person and committing themselves to the will of God and stepping out in faith and including the kids into the body of Christ. And it's very simple to me. And I don't think you need to reduce the ministry to something spectacular.
Yes. No, I was thinking, in terms of just leveraging what they're doing, locally. And I mean, my kids have gone to, Camp Life, and now my grandkids are going to camp. So that's part of their calendar. That's part of the, convention.
Whether you like it or not,
yeah,
they're going to go.
They say, hey, what are you doing? Yes,
to go.
that's right.
Yes,
and I love that because, that on the scale that it happens is, can't be replicated, but it does happen here.
Yes.
And, so maybe I'm saying that, to be encouraged to send, making sure that that's one event that's, that's like cemented in their calendar.
I mean, I would. I mean, if I'm a youth leader, I'm just saying, don't look at it as a disadvantage that you don't have a huge program. Look at it as a huge advantage. You'll probably have more intimate contact with the kids that you know.
Right.
But then on the other hand, and this is really the second part of it, I would utilize a program like Camp Life. I would utilize a lot of things here in Baltimore, because if the kids get to know the kids that are here, then there's relationships. It'll be more likely that they'll never go to Bible college if they don't know. It's very unlikely for an 18-year-old kid to say, yeah, you know what, I'm moving to Baltimore to go to Bible college. I mean, it happens, but it's actually doesn't happen that often. We'd like to think it happens a lot more. If that 18-year-old has already established relationships with Baltimore through Camp Life or other events, and they know people, it's a heck of a lot easier for that kid to come down. We have seen that over and over again. Some churches are very good at connecting to Baltimore with all these events, and it just makes it easier. I remember one church one year had 5 or 6 kids come in a period of 2 years, and they were always at our events. So yes, there is some benefits to the big programs and all the stuff that we have going on here, and I would absolutely tap into that, utilize that. In my world, a small youth ministry tapping into Baltimore is a really good plan. That's probably the best plan,
And that's what's available. I mean, and to think that because we don't have that, those kinds of events that we can only go but so far. But let's finish this out a little bit. The long term, the long vision, we could say, because again, going back to our axiom, it's simple, but not easy, because you're not going to get away with, 1 or 2 times, even maybe in a week, but you want to take it, the distance. So, maybe what age can we start at, and then what age do we consider that the youth ministry has, like, there's a handoff at the end of the tunnel? I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but what do you think, Jamie? I mean, in terms of just how young, and then how do you progress through the age brackets?
Yeah, I mean, I know here at Baltimore we take nursery kids as soon as they turn 1, and it's a little bit hard. It's obviously like a lot of babysitting, but we still do songs with them, still teaching them Jesus loves me. um, and I think it's such a great opportunity at, even a baby, can a baby learn something? I think so. And I think also encouraging families at home, like, hey, we sing these songs with your kid in the nursery, you could do it at home. I know in our home every single night we sing Jesus loves me from when they're like 6 months old, before we go to bed. That's just what we do. And then they hear it in nursery and it's like, oh, I already know this song.
Wow,
I've
yeah.
been learning this since I
I think
was
I
a
want
baby.
to start doing that. Me and my wife, I can see it.
Sing along with me. Yeah.
It's just something that I had a conviction about, and I wanted my kids to know more than anything that Jesus loves them. So we did it in song form, and they really took to it. But I think the church is complimenting what you're doing at home and complimenting what, I know for me, like, and what my mom did with me is what she learned in church service. She taught me and my brother and my sister in a very simple way, like a very simplified way. Like, this is what I learned at church today. Let me teach it to you. And she would teach us in the car and ask us questions. And I mean, there's just so many ways that you can teach your kids at home and then also in the youth ministry as well. And I think, maybe we kind of hand them off at like 18, but are we still a part of their life? I think so. If a young person
We
who's
are.
22 comes to me and says, I need help, or, I remember you investing in my life when I was 18 or 17, like, could I talk to you? Yeah. I'm not going to turn them away, but, kind of maybe hand them off into the young adults ministry that we have here and they become a part of that. But we can still be a part of their life and love them no matter what stage they're at.
Wow, that's so huge, and along that line, I guess the reason why I was stating that question was because our youth ministry that we had in New Jersey, the youth leader there got a phone call from, he's an adult, he has kids, he's out of state now, but he says, I just had to call you, Mr. Haywood, because of something that he had learned, and it kind of like defined how he was going to look at this and how he's going to handle this situation. And he remembered where he got it from. And so he just, kind of like reached back and just to say thank you so much, because had you not been who you were to me at that time, then I would be missing a very important aspect of my life today, even today.
I mean, this is the big secret of youth ministry,
Yeah, wow.
That the kids turn into adults. And guess what? When they're adults, they become your friends.
Yes.
They are my friends. I mean, they're 30-year-old guys, 35-year-old guys. I've been doing this 18 years. So I am 53 years old. Pastor Love was my youth leader. We're friends.
Come on.
Lifelong friends. So this is the great benefit of working with kids. They turn into, and it's a pleasure to watch them grow up and be God, body serving, God fearing young men or women. So it's, to me, it's a great gig. I love it.
I don't doubt that. I don't really doubt that. Any kind of closing thought for, say, a new church plant and how they maybe want to go about doing this?
Boy, we got to be praying youth leaders. We got to be praying Sunday school teachers. We got to be on our knees for our kids. It's funny to me. I have these I'm sure it's like that for a lot of us. Our prayer life is a little bit like this. Somehow, over time, months go by, and I suddenly realize I haven't been praying as much. And I just want to be a youth leader that prays for their kids. I want to know their name. Their names plague us. That's the truth of it. God,
so good.
God put their names in our hearts. It's an eternal thing in a sense that God touched us, gave us love in our hearts. That's what I believe, because I was just a contractor. I didn't care about anybody. And then God gave me love for teenagers. That's what I believe happened to me. So with that love, those names, they stick to you. They don't leave you. They can be 10 years old, 10 years later, 15 years later, 3 years later, doesn't matter. Yesterday I was in church. After church, we did song praying for kids. I'm praying for a teenager. I'm literally praying for this guy, and all of a sudden he gets the microphone. This kid who I didn't know was in church starts praying. And I hear his voice and go, I just prayed for him, and he's over there praying, and he says he's doing great. So They do. They plague us. They don't leave us. We think about them. I think if you get one thing right, be someone that is involved with the youth at any level that you're involved in them. Be praying all the time and challenge yourself to pray more and slot time in your busy schedule just for prayer for them.
Wow.
That'd be a good youth minister if we were praying for them.
Well, that is ministry, and
Mhm.
and I, the axiom is that I really don't have much to say to someone
Mm.
until I prayed for them.
There you go.
Because if I've gone to God for you, then I've got something from God for you. And you don't need me; you need what we
Mm.
get from the Lord. And so, even when you don't have any kids yet, you're praying, and asking, not only God to prepare your heart, but so that those young people can be baptized into your life and into the life of the church and the
Right.
life of the ministry.
That's it.
And when that happens, it's like it's a piece of cake with some icing on top.
Mhm.
Jamie, thank you so much, dear. You are amazing.
I told you.
Where were you when I was coming out? That's so good. That's so good. And Pastor Pete, thank you for your faithfulness.
Mm.
19 years?
18,
18.
January.
I always
Yeah.
want to add a year or two on these numbers.
The gray hair. That's what.
Yeah. And friends, thank you for being with us. We'll be back next Monday, and you can join us again on the broadcast. Thank you so much for being with us. Until next time, God bless you.